recording and start.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Brandon from AAAS, and I have with me here Leslie.
Hi,
We're going to be talking today about the Just Tech Guide competition and going over some of the application procedures and whatnot. We're doing this webinar because we noticed that there were a lot of questions that were coming in about the application and the competition, and so we just wanted to go over some of the things we previously covered in webinars to talk about those questions that we're getting in and hopefully answer any questions that you might have in addition. I'm going to send out a message to everybody to let us know if you hear us or if there's any problems. Hopefully you can. If you can hear us, you don't need to reply. But there should be a question box along the side of your what you can see, and you should be able to ask questions at any point during the presentation. We'll probably go through this presentation first and then go to the questions just because it's easier on us. But we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so again, this is our final advice and tips. Let me move this out of the way so we don't need to see. From us on how to apply and some of the important aspects of the competition that we're going to be going on. Okay. So here's what we want to discuss during this webinar. We're going to talk about the TechEye timeline. We're going to talk about application specifics and advice, going through the different aspects of the application. We also are going to give other final advice on what we'd like to cover, or what we think you should do in your applications just to make sure everything is good, and then we'll have question and answer. So for the timeline, we have, during the beginning of the year, we announced a new deadline of January 22nd. So we have until Friday at noon to apply, and so if you have, before we get into this, if you have any questions about or problems applying, please let us know. We're standing by, ready to answer any questions, to go over, to solve any problems that you might have in the application. If you're pressing submit and it's not going through, let us know. We're happy to help you out. We're working that side of the application, so we're happy to help. There'll be a short internal review to just make sure that everybody qualifies for the competition, making sure that you have a video, making sure you have an executive summary, and then after that it gets sent off to the experts who will review your application, and those experts will then, based upon their scoring, pick out 100 semi-finalists that will go onto the voting portion of the competition. That voting portion goes roughly a month long, and then after that, based upon the voting results and the expert scores, that will be determined who will be going on to the finals to pitch their idea in Silicon Valley. As you might notice, the only thing with the only thing here with a time is the application deadline, which is January 22nd. The other ones are in flux. We don't know exactly when the Global Entrepreneurship Summit will happen, and because of that, that's kind of dictating the rest of the timeline. We're not sure, but we should have, once the application deadline has come and passed, we should have a better idea on when exactly those are, and once we do, we will of course announce them. So just going over the applications, so there are a couple parts of the application. The first part is your personal details. Just make sure that they are accurate and correct. Make sure, especially that email is correct. That's how we're going to reach you. Should you make it onto the finals, we will be emailing you whether or not you have made it onto the semifinals, but make sure that that is the correct email address and it's a working email address. And then also the country of citizenship and the company name is correct. These are fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things just based on questions we received. So with eligibility, a large part of the eligibility requirement is your country of citizenship. Eligibility is determined by the applicant. So if you are working in a team, Just make sure that whoever submits the application meets our requirements, and that means that they're a citizen of a JIST eligible country and they do not also hold dual citizenship in a non-JIST country like the US or Canada or Russia or something like that. As long as they meet that requirement, and as well as that they're between 18 to 40 years old, then they are eligible and they can apply. Don't start an application if you do not meet those eligibility requirements. Contact us and let us know the situation, but essentially look for somebody on the team that does meet that to submit the application.
Yeah, and that's a lot of questions have come in saying that I don't meet the age requirement or I'm not living in a JIST country. And usually when we follow up and say, well, are you working in a team, and does anybody on that team match the eligibility? Usually they're quite frequently get back saying, yes, I have a team member from a JIST country, or yes, some of our team members are younger than 40 or older than 18. So really try to look into all the options to apply, because we really want to showcase your ideas and startups on this competition. Okay, for another part of the application is the short summary. This is new this year, and the idea behind it is that should you go on to the semifinals, this will show up underneath your video, which again, we'll discuss a little bit more about the video later in this presentation. But it'll just be a quick summary of what the idea is, so that people can get an understanding of it. It must be no more than 100 words, must be written in English. Again, keep it to 2 sentences or shorter, and then, like I said, it's going to be used in the voting phase. So just a quick overview. Don't worry too much about this. It doesn't have to be technical in any way. It just should be like an idea for water purification in South Africa, or something along the lines of that, a quick summary, nothing too extensive. Do you want to take the executive summary?
Sure. So the executive summary is really kind of the bulk of the application as far as technical content. So with the executive summary, it should be no more than 750 words, and it does need to be written in English. What you're looking to address here is the science and technology behind your idea or your startup, why it's significant. So first of all, what problem are you looking to solve? Why is that problem significant? Why is your idea or your solution relevant? And then, of course, the science and technology behind your idea. And then lastly, you want to focus on the business strategy. So you're looking into identifying who your potential market is, who you're trying to advertise to, what business strategy you have as far as your management team. Do you know who your CEO, your CFO, or whatever internal management structure will be? Do you know who those people are? Are they qualified? Does your management structure match your idea, basically? Just address these 3 big issues: the significance, the relevance, the technical merit behind the idea, and your commercial potential. And then you'll be able to be a little more creative and a little more promotional in the video. So this is really, our experts are going to be looking at this closely, and there's a full detailed criteria on page 9 of the program announcement. So if you want to see exactly the breakdown of what they're looking for within these 3 different topic areas, you can see what kind of questions our reviewers are supposed to be asking themselves when they review the executive summary.
Yeah, and again, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but a lot of the information we're going over here is in the program announcement, and it's all written out. We also have translation copies in Arabic, Spanish, French, and Russian, should you want to use those. But it's a really great guide for how to tell you how to structure your executive summary and some of the things we're looking for, as well as important milestones in the app in terms of the competition as well. One of the questions we often get in terms of the executive summary is, I'm concerned about my idea getting stolen. And what we always advise you to do is to make sure that you don't have any business confidential information within the application. We're happy to work with you to make sure that your ideas are not stolen. We're going to we try our best to make sure, especially like during the review process, we make sure that the reviewers sign agreements that they won't take your idea and run with it. So we're really concerned about that. But if you have any concern about how you're putting together your application, making sure that it's safe, let us know, and we're happy to work with you on that. So.
Okay. And to just tag on that, again, the executive summary is only up to 750 words. We'll discuss this later, but you will have an option to upload supplemental documents. Those the reviewers are not required to look at, so that's just something optional that you can add, and it's at their discretion to review. But since the executive summary is only 750 words, you're not going to be spelling out exactly, the physical or chemical background behind your idea. We're looking for a well-described summary of how the idea will work. It's not like you're going to be sending us a giant diagram of some machine that you've designed. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. We'll go over the video a little bit. So a lot of people come in with questions on this, and we want to tell you that do not view the making of a video an obstacle to applying. There are really a lot of options. If you want to get more information about making a video, we're going to go over some of it here, but we also did a webinar where we showcased some of the previous finalists and their video, just to give you an idea of what you can do for it. The requirements for it are it needs to be only 90 seconds. I've been asked whether it can be under 90 seconds. That's perfectly fine, but just make sure you get your point across. You don't want 5 seconds and we don't know exactly what's going on. We need to know what's the idea, what's the startup. But 90 seconds is the maximum. If it's over than that, the reviewers who will review the application are not required to view anything more than 90 seconds. The other option is that we cut it, and if we cut it, we'll probably just cut it at the 90-second mark. And so if there's something important after 90 seconds, that's going to be lost and will not be seen. So just be mindful of that 90 seconds. If you have questions about putting it under 90 seconds, let us know. It has to be in English or have English subtitles. This is if you're feeling like your English is not strong, or not strong, if you don't have the best English skills in your opinion, you can always put in subtitles. You can also put in have someone speak for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be the applicant speaking in a video. So if you have a friend who you feel has a great voice and would be better at narrating the video, then you can definitely put that you can definitely have them narrate instead of you. And then some of the advice we give you is to focus on the purpose, to be creative. The more creative you are, the more interesting it will be, the more compelling it will be. So keep that in mind. Another important point about this video portion of the application is that it will be what people view when they are voting at the semifinals. And so it's important to remember, view it in terms of what would the general public want to know, or how can I interest the general public in what we're going to talk about, or what my idea and startup is. And we'll go a little bit more in depth in this video portion as well in the next few slides. But also, keep in mind to include people, graphics, and animation. These are all options that you can include in your video. So.
And just about the 90 seconds too, not only are our viewers not required to watch beyond 90 seconds, but really if your video is longer than 90 seconds, you're going to lose the interest of not only the reviewers, but the general public if you were to advance. So just keep in mind that 90 seconds is a hard limit. If you exceed that limit, you risk not having your idea shared, and you risk losing the audience a little bit. This should be really kind of like a pitch in video form, like a condensed version of your executive summary, where all you do is you focus on the main points of what the problem is, why it's important, what your solution is, and what the market potential is for it.
Okay. So some of the things we suggest in terms of making a video is to use basically what you have available. You don't need to go out and rent a high-tech camera to make this video. Really, the stuff you have at home or at school would be appropriate for making this video. So some of the suggestions we have are use your laptop, use your webcam for to videotape, just like we're doing here. To use cell phone, that's often a technique that we've seen winners in the past, and again, I'll direct you to that webinar that we did on videos. We have winners that have started out by using their cell phone. It's just them talking to the cell phone camera for 90 seconds to explain their ideas. Cameras, again, and video cameras are another option. Some of the software we advise you might use is Powtoon, excuse me, .com. That's the kind of an animation software. The only problem with it is you might have to pay for it. So we don't encourage you to spend money on this video because, like I say, you can make it with your cell phone or webcam. Another option in terms of software is PowerPoint, which allows you to make a presentation and then record it, even with a voiceover as well. So it's not a difficult thing. In fact, last year we'd often have people who would put together the PowerPoint, but for whatever reason couldn't make the video. I'm not exactly sure why, but they would send us the PowerPoint, and it just takes a click for us to turn it into a video, assuming that you have you've got the timing for the slides and the voiceover for the presentation. So, okay, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate the idea behind the video, but this should really be promoting your idea to the general public. So we recommend that you start by identifying the problem that you're addressing, you know, how many people your problem affects, or any supporting kind of tidbits that might hook somebody into watching your video. And then tell us your background or the idea or the background of your idea. So, you know, how you came up with this idea briefly and what your solution is. And at that point, you really need to sell everyone on the idea. So, you know, sell not only the idea, but the significance of the problem, and then leave your lasting mark with us. So this might just be something like a logo with information on how to get, or, you know, like a direction on how to get more information, or a last pitch. So, you know, some last data about the problem and your solution.
Yeah, and really focus on that problem and solution aspect. Those are what we need to hear about and what the general public needs to hear about when they vote on your idea. And I cannot stress this enough. The problem is important because if I don't know there's a particular issue, maybe I'm living in, I don't know, I'm living in Mexico and a particular issue is not important for me, but it might be an important thing going on in, I don't know, Ukraine or something like that. And so I need to know what that problem is, and you need to describe to me why it's important to make me believe that there needs to be a solution to it, and then sell me on it and tell me your solution. Make me want to purchase or invest or care about your solution. So.
And for the solution part, you know, we do have the idea stage versus the startup stage. So the solution doesn't, or depicting the solution in the video doesn't necessarily need to include like a prototype or a diagram of your machine or technology or whatever you've developed. It can just be the basic logic of your solution. So don't fret if you don't actually have a prototype. We certainly don't expect it at the idea stage.
Okay. So supporting documents. I want to stress this to begin with about the supporting documents, is that these are not required to be reviewed by the reviewers. So you do not want to have any important details that are important for the application itself. You should include any important information in the executive summary, because otherwise there might be some important thing that you have and it's in those supporting documents and the reviewer is not going to see it. So there's a maximum of 2 supporting documents that you can submit. They must be in English like the rest of the application. Again, the expert panels are not required to review it, so don't put anything that is really the most important thing in your application in those things. Important information, again, important, needs to go into that executive summary. Some examples that we give you are statistics, spreadsheets, diagrams, charts, graphs, photos, and team member details. For example, the team member details is important for particularly startup sometimes, if a reviewer sees that you have a team together and that you have different responsibilities, that gives it a little bit more weight in terms of this is an idea, or excuse me, a startup that has thought these things through and is going forward and can go somewhere because they're putting together a team with different responsibilities. So just again, these are supporting your application, and should the reviewer who's in the expert panel want to know more information, they might look to it, but they again are not required to.
Yeah, and to tack on to that, like Brandon said, the important stuff should go in the actual application materials. But if you want to encourage, or if a reviewer will be more likely to look at a supporting document if it's something visual and something short. So don't attach like a 50-page staff handbook that you've created. If you have one graph maybe of like the growth of a certain market over a few years, and they click through really quickly and they see that, that's something that they can spend an extra 30 seconds at their discretion to look at. They're very unlikely to read something like a 5-page report. If you include a chart or graph that supplements data or a quick overview of the market potential in your application, then they might look at that and it would be favorable for your application.
Yeah, and so this, again, to just kind of go off of that, is you can make a reference in your executive summary about what the potential market is, and you've done testing already about that particular market. And that's, you don't need to include the graphs, the fine details of that market survey or so forth. That can be included in the supplemental, so that if someone sees that, they're saying, oh, I'd be interested to know the exact details of this market survey, I can look in there in this supplemental documents for additional information. Okay, so these are just the do's. I cannot stress this enough. Take the risk and apply. I don't personally think it's a huge risk to apply. I mean, I've had people ask these questions about should I apply or should I not apply. In my opinion, you should all apply. I mean, assuming you meet the requirements for the competition. But go ahead and apply for this. There's really no risk involved in applying. And I think the rewards are really great, with the opportunity to potentially, if you're a finalist, go on to Silicon Valley, pitch in front of a group of people. I mean, I'm sure that that the audience will be quite interesting for Silicon Valley, and so we are really excited. And also the opportunity to win prizes at the finals as well. So I highly suggest you take the risk.
And also for finals, anybody who comes to finals will be trained for a few days, and they will also walk away with at least or up to 3 months of one-on-one mentoring.
Yeah.
So even if you don't win the prize money, you still have a great opportunity to showcase your idea, and maybe a passerby or somebody who's attending the conference gets wind of your idea and they follow up with you later. That's definitely a possibility. And then also, even if you don't make it to finals, or if you make it to semifinals, you're still getting feedback on your idea. So if it's at the very early stages, you can still definitely apply. Maybe it's a brilliant idea, maybe you advance. Maybe you get feedback that it needs to be developed more. So it's absolutely, there's no risk, but a huge reward.
Yeah, and I guess that reminds me of a story from last year. We actually had an application from Albania, and the person went on to the semifinals, and actually was mentioned, the idea and the person was mentioned on the Prime Minister of Albania's Facebook page. They didn't end up, unfortunately, they didn't end up going on to the finals, but they got a huge amount of publicity just being in the semifinals, because their idea was given a platform that they might not have had previously. So, I mean, it is, even if you don't make it onto the finals, your idea and your name goes on. Especially if you make it onto those to the semifinals.
Yeah, and to tack on to that too, it's never too early to start advertising your participation in this competition, because if you do advance to semifinals, your idea will be voted on by the global public. So if you're telling your friends now and your networks and your coworkers or whoever that you're doing this, you can start drumming up support so that should you advance the semifinals, you already have a large voting base. So at the end, we'll go over our hashtags and all of that. But definitely tell people you're participating in this, because not only will that help if you advance the voting stage, but you might also, because this is associated with the GIST initiative, you might also attract support locally, either in the form of mentorship or even venture capital, just by saying that you're participating in this. That's something positive that you can definitely get a start on now.
Right. We tell you to be yourself and think creatively. I think those are the applications that typically go the farthest, is when you're creative and you're showing us your personality. That is a really compelling, especially for the video portion of the application. It makes us interested. It makes the reviewers interested, and it makes the general public interested in wanting to vote for you. So really stressing, be yourself in your application. Remember to sell us your product and ideas. This is kind of what we were speaking about in the video portion. Tell us why we need it. Tell us what the problem is, and then tell us what your solution is. Don't worry about the video quality. This is something we get asked a lot. Like we say, a cell phone video is perfectly fine. People who have applied with a cell phone video have made it on to the finals. It's what you say and how you present it in the video, rather than whether it's necessarily grainy in those videos. Although I would like to, I didn't mention this in the video when we were going over the video earlier, but you should be mindful when you are doing your video that you're in probably a more quieter place, because you want to make sure that the reviewers and the public can hear what you're saying. If you're in an area where it's very noisy, it would be difficult for us to hear what you're saying and to get interested in your idea. That's often an issue that we've experienced in the past, so we just want to stress it. I'd like to stress it again. And then make sure to check all your information, as we said, to make sure that it is correct and updated. We've gotten some questions about making sure that their emails are correct, and we're happy to respond to those questions. And again, if we're going to answer questions at the end of this, but if at any point in the next day or two you have questions, our email address is at the end, and we're happy to answer questions about it.
And if you have already submitted your application, don't worry, you can still go back in, add to, edit. If you've heard something today that makes you want to change how you present something, you can still do that. Just log in, make your change, and save the change. So you can continue to work on it until the deadline.
Yep. Okay, some of the things that we say to not do, although we kind of went over this earlier, is make sure that all your application materials meets the length. Again, we can't stress this enough. 100 words for the short summary, 750 for the executive summary, and 90 seconds for the promotional video. And if you have any problems, we've already done this before, and we did it in years prior. If for some reason you can't upload your video, you can either send it to us via email, or you can send it as a shared document, or send us a link to where it's posted, and we can see if we can take it down from where you posted it, and we can just go into your application and upload it for you to look at and make sure it's right, and then you can hit submit. It's not a problem, and that probably gets the last one. Remember to hit submit when you're applying. I'm always reminded to do that.
Yeah. And I'll add one too, is just don't ignore the eligibility requirements. It would be really awful if you create this long application and submit all this material, but you yourself are beyond the 18 to 40-year-old age limit, or you hold dual citizenship in a non-GIST country, and you got to that point and realized you couldn't submit. Take the time now to identify a team member, or just ensure that you meet those two eligibility. I mean, those are the main eligibility requirements: are that you're a citizen of a GIST country and that you are between 18 and 40. So don't ignore those. You should know pretty easily if you meet those requirements. If not, identify a team member now who can just create and submit the application on the team's behalf. That person becomes the applicant, and that applicant is the person that travels to finals. But just make sure that you have the chance to present your idea by naming somebody as the applicant who actually meets the requirements.
Okay, so here we've outlined some next steps for you. Again, apply. It's really easy. I hope this webinar has helped you understand the application process. It's really, not it's not complicated. It's just your personal details where you enter a couple of information about yourself, that short summary, the executive summary in the video, and then if you need to, supporting documents. So we're here to help you. Email us your questions. There's our email right there, techeye@justnetwork.org. Make sure that, do you want to spread the word?
Yeah, so like I said, it's not too early to start drumming up support for your idea. It's also, as Brendan told the story about the Albanian Prime Minister, saying that you've participated in this competition, even if you don't advance to semifinals, can help you drum up local mentorship support or funding support. So tweet at us at JustNetwork, #JustNet. We also have a hashtag JustTechEye. So look for that, and then our Facebook page is a good way to stay up to date with announcements. So should we get the final dates for finals and things like that, we'll email you, but we will also post that kind of information to social media.
Yeah.
And we do have a bunch of flyers and social media graphics and things that you can download from that link to distribute to prospective mentors or just friends and family members who you think might be interested in participating as well.
Okay, and then we're recording this webinar and we will post it on YouTube. If you came in late, we're happy you can review the entirety of the entire webinar once we post this, and we'll make sure to send a link to that website, www.justnetwork.org/advice, so that you can go to it there. But if you want to email us at techeye@justnetwork.org, we can send you the link once it's posted to YouTube too, so you can go and view it. And then again, to stress, finally, the deadline is the 22nd, which is this Friday at noon, and we are here until that time, happy to answer questions about the application process and as well about the competition as a whole. And so with that, I'm going to leave this up right now. I'm going to go forward. It's question time, but I'll put this up so that if you need to write down any of the information that's on this screen, you can while we answer some of the questions. So looks like we've got some. Okay. Let's go. Let me get to the first one. Sorry. So the question we have is the team member that applies the person that must represent the team if the company is chosen to the finalists, or can another member represent the team? Well, we typically say that whoever's name is on that application is the person that will be the representative at the finals. So you should keep that in mind. There is a possibility if for some reason they are there's an issue, they're ill, or there's some emergency, we can try to work with you and your team to get someone else from your team to come to the finals. Although that being said, they'll still need to meet the requirements of the competition. So they'll still need to meet the requirements in terms of citizenship and age limit. So just keep that in mind. But really, it should be the person who's applying that will eventually come on to the finals.
Yeah, and I'll tag on that the applicant and that's the person that comes to finals, should their pitch win and they are named a Just Tech Eye winner, that applicant is the person that actually receives the funds.
So we have a question from James about how to make a video clip with PowerPoint. If you could just send us an email at techeye@justnetwork.org, we'll work with you to, if you have the PowerPoint together, you can just send it to us, and then we can email back and forth about putting it together as a video, but I'm happy to help on that.
I also, just in answering another question earlier, if you go to the Microsoft website and you search for help on how to record a PowerPoint, they have really easy, like 5-step instructions and screenshots on how to record the PowerPoint.
And I think that's how I learned.
Yeah.
So we have a question about citizenship. To confirm, applicants cannot be dual citizenships or dual citizens. So the requirement is that you can you have to be a citizen of a GIST country, and for information on which country is a GIST country, if you have any questions about that, it's all listed on gistnetwork.org. It's in the Tech Guide pages, but also it's listed on the overall website. The requirement in terms of dual citizen is you cannot apply if you are a dual citizen of a non-GIST country. So if you're potentially a dual citizen of two GIST countries, you're fine to apply. That's fine, because technically no matter which one, you are you're from a GIST country. However, if you're applying and you are a dual citizen of a non-GIST country, then you would not be able to apply. And again, we would stress that if that's the case, look in your team and see if you have another team member who could apply to represent the team at the finals and during the competition. Okay. Supporting documents. Can one of them be a video too? Is you want to attach a demo video, which is different from the promotional video. Many things. So I have to look at the requirements, but from what I remember in terms of the file requirements, a video would not be possible. What I would advise you to do, if you really think this demo, again, if it's an important point, you need to include that in your executive summary or your promotional video itself. But I would see if you could possibly showcase that demo quickly in the promotional video if you really feel like it would help your case. Or the other option would be if you can somehow take the images from that demonstration and then show that in a for example, kind of a sheet with pictures explaining how the demo worked. That'd probably be better than attaching another video.
Yeah. And probably better too for the reviewers. I would think that they'd be more inclined to look at a couple pictures of the demonstration rather than to watch a second video.
Okay, oops, why does it jump down? Okay, so we have a question about someone who, it's actually the two questions can be combined. If you were born in the US, then you're technically a US citizen, and therefore you wouldn't be able to apply even if you live in another country, such as Argentina. Unfortunately, the requirements are for you to be a citizen of a GIST country and then not to have dual citizenship of another country that is not a GIST country. So. All right. May the video be only explanation in text and animation without background voice or narration. I think that was the entirety of it. So did you want to?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's certainly an option. There's no reason you couldn't do that, especially if you're concerned, I guess, of your English speaking abilities. That said, keep in mind that the video, should you advance the final, will be voted on by the global public. So while you might be able to get your idea across in text, you might not hook a lot of viewers without any sound. So just keep that in mind. It's certainly acceptable, but just any sound or speaking will probably attract more viewers to the video.
Yeah, I mean, I would advise you to be creative if that's the case. We had a finalist from last year who did not have, he had sound but no speaking, and I don't think there was any actual text in that video either. But it was an interesting video, and so it really hooked you and easily explained through animation the idea that he was trying to get across. And so it's possible, but again, you need to be inventive, and like we say, be yourself. Try to make it interesting so that even without voiceover, we can understand the idea and be interested in it. Can I submit 2 proposals? No. You can only submit 1 proposal for the app for this year. This has been, the TechEye competition has been running for several years now, and so if you want to apply next year, if there's another competition next year, then you can apply with that other idea. What I would suggest, though, is to really look at your idea, keeping in mind the competition, and see what one you think will do the best in the competition. We've gotten some questions like, here are my 2 ideas. I personally am not a good judge of what would be the best. I think it really comes down to you looking over the requirements for the competition, you thinking about how the competition works, and then going from there and choosing the idea based off of that.
And I would also add that you should consider if you have multiple ideas, which idea you can best sell. So not necessarily the biggest, most grandiose idea that you have, but the one that you can concretely identify the problem, you can identify your solution, you have more working knowledge or more technical background in solving. So that's other criteria that you could consider.
Okay, another question we have is if my idea is only, it sounds like only applicable to a particular country, is that enough to be a semifinalist? Yes. Assuming it's a just country, if it's only targeted at one country, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I wasn't involved in the 2014 competition, but I can think of the quickest one that comes to mind is there was a finalist with the idea called Bus Ticket Zambia, and it was squarely focused on an issue in Zambia and how to fix that particular issue, and that person went all the way to the finals. I know there are other ones that were country specific in last year. I'm just blanking on them right now, but it's perfectly fine. And to kind of talk about the reverse of that, if you're you shouldn't necessarily think as well that if it doesn't affect just one particular country, that it wouldn't, or if it doesn't affect one particular country. So, for example, if it's more of a global idea, that shouldn't hold you back from applying as well. As long as it somehow impacts just country in some way, that's the important aspect in terms of relating it back to a country or an economy. So, okay. The application is due at what time exactly on the 22nd? So it's, would you mind handing me the program answer? It's at noon New York time, just to give you an idea, which is 5 p.m. GMT for help, Greenwich Mean Time. So that is, 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, just so that you have an idea, but that's noon in New York, basically, on the 22nd. Let's see, type of problem in my country of Afghanistan. Can I submit? Okay, so here's another question about submitting 2 ideas. So again, we need you to just submit 1 idea for the competition this year.
Yeah, and to tack on, so we've had a couple questions by email about this too. The GISTech-I competition is not geared towards rewarding or awarding individuals. So the idea is not to award somebody with a rich CV or a resume. The idea is actually to award funds and mentorship based on a specific idea or specific startup. And so we're not looking, you shouldn't be submitting your resume by any means. You should be submitting a very concrete, singular focused executive summary based on 1 idea that you have and what you've done to work towards making that idea a possibility. So it's not a resume competition, it's focused on an idea or a startup.
So another question we have is, my startup category is education, can I apply? One of the things we spoke about in an earlier webinar about the specifics of the application is that there are, we offer a couple of sectors that you can choose, such as agriculture or healthcare, but we also offer another category, other, and this is going to be based upon, we'll create basically some categories or maybe just 1 category depending upon the applications we receive. So the question that was asked is in education. But actually, from what I've heard from Leslie, she's been looking over the applications, is that actually education is one of the fields that seems to be quite prevalent and that assuming it somehow involves technology or science, it's perfectly fine to apply. Just make sure you pick other, and then it'll prompt you to enter the particular sector or topic you think it should be under. Just remember to enter education under that.
Right. And so, yeah, to reiterate, it does need to be science and technology based. So education, if you're applying to build a school or develop curriculum that you're going to train on the go, that doesn't really qualify. If instead you're building an application, like a phone application or some kind of tablet, learning device or something, that certainly applies. It's just we're not actually, education in the sense of like school-based or just like non-technology based doesn't typically apply.
Sorry, no. Shoot. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Can I pull this out?
If you drag it to the other side.
So I'll try to answer this question like this. Okay. What was the structure of last year's finals? How many days were there, and what were the time requirements for the pitch? So we didn't really touch on this when we went through the timeline, but basically what happens is there's a 2-day training period prior to the finals, which is held at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. Those 2-day training, you're taught how to make sure that your business plan is stable or is good, and then also to make sure that you're meeting the demands of the customer or what the customer needs. As we get closer, we can provide you more information on what will be covered in the finals. That's then followed by either 2 to 3 days of the summit. So roughly, I'd say 5 days total on the ground, and the pitching will happen during 2 of those days at the summit. So what we do is we break up the finalists into 2 groups, usually 15 and 15, and those are determined by their category. So 15 startups and 15 ideas, and they pitch on different days. Usually, the pitching is roughly, you'll have about 3 to 5 minutes to pitch your idea, and you can use a presentation like a PowerPoint like we are using today, or you can just talk and pitch your idea. That's followed by about 5 minutes of question and answers from the judges, and each of the 15 for each day, so 30 total, you will have that amount of time for each of them.
And there will be training and support leading up to the finals and after. Typically in the past, we've held a few webinars to cover like business strategy topics and things that are better suited for before the finalists' arrival to global entrepreneurship. So I think last year there was a webinar on IP the finalists were invited to attend. And then after finals, again, all 30 finalists will be matched with mentors for up to 3 months of one-on-one mentorship beyond finals.
So this is a question about, they're questioning whether they're an idea or a startup, that they might be in between. I would say go ahead and send us an email to tell us a little bit about your idea, but I think we've been discussing this before, and what really determines whether you're a startup versus an idea is, do you have a prototype working? And then another thing is, do you have a team together? That's another sign that, those are signs that you're a startup. If you have a team, if you have a prototype, if you've done some market research, that shows that you're more on the side of a startup. We actually list some of the characteristics in the program announcement, which is available on justnetwork.org under the TechEye pages. So if you're really interested in determining whether you are one way or the other, feel free to look at that or send us an email and we can kind of tell you what we think. I will say that we will be reviewing, making sure that your application matches the qualifications for the competition. And if at any time we feel like you put yourself in a category that is not appropriate, we feel like it makes more sense to put you into energy versus some other category, we can do that at that time. Or if we feel that you've submitted and we say, well, this person actually looks like they have a startup versus an idea, we can always move that at any time in our review period to match what should be what was needed. So don't worry too much about it. Try to get what you, based upon what we put in the program announcement, correct, or the correct type. But again, we can change that and look through it. Not a problem. Okay. Let me see. This is going. Okay. If selected for as a finalist, does Just Tech Eye cover your flight and accommodations? Yes, I'm happy to say that. Yeah. So we will cover your flight to the Just Tech Eye competition finals at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, which again is in Silicon Valley. We sort of mentioned it earlier, but it's we'll pay for that flight. And then also we'll pay for food and hotel accommodations while you're here for the finals. We always say that the only thing you have to worry about paying for are souvenirs and gifts for people back home. So let me see. Sorry. If I have schematics or anything like that regarding ideas, can I upload it into the supporting documents? Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of something you could load up into the supporting documents. That's kind of, I think, what Leslie was talking about. So, okay. Okay. Here's a question. I think this is actually good. If a representative of the team makes it to the finals, does the whole team get mentorship, or will only he get the mentorship? So, we're more focused in terms of the mentorship aspect is for the individual. That being said, I'd like to tell you a little bit how we involve teams. So obviously we can't afford to pay for the teams to fly, everyone on the team to fly to the finals and participate. I think it would be great if we could, but unfortunately we just don't have the funds. That being said, during the run-up to the finals, once finals have been announced, we have webinars doing going over certain aspects of business, such as IP, as we kind of mentioned earlier. And at that time, the team can be involved. The team can all participate in those webinars and learn from those webinars. After the finals, during the mentorship period, the 3 months afterwards, I would view it as your representative is your contact with your mentor. So you as a team might have a question, or you as an individual of the team might have a question. Route that through that finalist, and they can ask the mentor for additional information on and advice on how to deal with something like that. Okay, how many proposals were submitted there last year? Okay, so last year there was a total of 792 completed applications that were submitted last year. I think around, trying to remember the exact number, I think 67 made it onto the final, or excuse me, onto the semifinals of the competition last year. So we're hoping to reach that target, but it's all determined by you all and how you apply. So, okay. Can we see last year's 90-second videos submitted by previous entrepreneurs? So the easiest way to tell you this is, well, actually there are two ways. One is go onto justnetwork.org/techeye, and under there, there should be a tab, or not a tab, but a potential to click on new and news and past winners. Under that, you should see a list of previous winners and a little description about, I think there are 5 of them up there right now, a description of their idea, and then you can click and see their promotional video that they put together. Additionally, if you go to the TechEye advice page, you can look at the webinars that the webinar we did for how to make a promotional video, and in those videos we showcase a couple of previous finalists that you can see, and just to give you an idea of what they look like. So yeah.
I would definitely recommend the latter. Look at our video or our webinar about creating videos. You can obviously skip through a lot of the content that we've discussed today and that really highlights the videos that we think are good examples. They're all from finalists, and they kind of show all the different ways you can make a video and what uniformly makes a good video, and that's selling the idea and selling the problem.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. I think we went through all of our questions. If you have, we'll stick around for another minute. I guess the only thing to go over the deadline is the 22nd of January at noon. So that was, I read 5 p.m. GMT time. We're here up until that deadline. Happy to answer any questions you might have on the application. Don't forget to press submit once you're done. And if you're having any problems with the application portal, please let us know. We're happy to work with you and make sure that your ideas are submitted. Like I said, you're having trouble for submitting or uploading the video, send it to us. We're happy to upload it. Any modifications to your application can be done up until the 22nd at noon, so feel free to do that.
And if you still have a draft application right now, with the deadline so close, I definitely recommend submitting now, especially if you have the executive summary, the summary, short summary, and the video uploaded. Go ahead and submit it. Like we said, you can still go back and make changes, but if you submit it as soon as that information is uploaded, then if you have a technical difficulty or you get sick the next couple days or something and you can't log back on to make the changes or additions that you wanted to, you still have a submitted application on record. And there's no risk to that because you can go back and edit it if you do end up having the time the next couple days to do so.
Yeah, and I want to I go and stress that again. Don't wait until the deadline to start submitting, because if you have technical problems, I can tell you we're going to be overwhelmed with questions about how to apply. So go ahead, submit now, and then that way you have an application up, and then you can go ahead and edit that at any time in the future. And if that way, if you have you wanted to upload your executive summary and you had one that was a placeholder, we can go in at that point after the deadline and upload that if need be. But if you don't have it submitted, then we can't accept that. So.
And yeah, to clarify though, that would be if there were extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
We're not saying
that,
submit an incomplete application and then email us
Yes.
later with all of your materials past the deadline. We're saying that if there was you submit an application and then you log on tomorrow and there was some difficulty with uploading a picture that you wanted to do a supplemental documentation, then we can take care of that after the craziness of all the questions have been handled.
Yeah, so yes, exactly. What I was trying to say is that if you submit and then you have technical issues at that last moment, then we can work with you at that point. But if you don't submit, then we don't have the opportunity to do that sort of thing. So it looks like we have one more question. How much does the success of an idea depend on the number of people the idea impacts? I don't know. That's a difficult question to answer, but I would say,
I personally don't think that is a significant criteria if the gravity of the problem is significant. So say you are working in health and you have a potential, not a cure, but some sort of device or something to help people with leprosy. There aren't a lot of people with leprosy, but it's a significant problem and you've designed a creative solution to that problem. So that will be just as important and meaningful and impactful for our judges as somebody who's designed, an application, an education application for the entire Spanish-speaking community. So just keep that in mind. If it's you have to sell us on the problem. You don't have to sell us necessarily on how many people it affects, but how important or grave the problem is. That all helps.
Yeah, and then we got a question about, can I replace a submitted video? Well, you can go on right now, and again before the deadline, if you have if you need to change your video, you can do that at any point before the deadline. So go ahead and just upload your new one, and it will replace your old one when you do this. So just select to upload your particular file for the new video, and it will overwrite the old one and post that one instead. If you have problems with this, let us know. That's a really easy step for us to do on our part. Again, before the deadline, though, please. And again, that's even if you've submitted already. For you can edit your application, such as your video, before the deadline. Let's see. Does the Tech Eye team need help? Will help to materialize the idea. So will we help you create, forward your idea? Well, we can help in terms of promoting your idea, and should you make it to the finals, there's a potential that you could get prize money to help you develop that idea. But we, the competition itself doesn't go out and help you create the idea. What we do is we offer you potential for prizes and mentorship and training to help you create that idea. Jiminy Crickets, we got some questions. Let's see. Does the idea have to be new, fresh idea, or an existing idea that's already been used has a prototype ready and needs growing? So this is often a question. So if an idea exists, or if something exists in another part of the world, and you think this would really be great to implement in some fashion, obviously with your idea and your startup in my particular country, then you can apply with that idea. That is perfectly fine. For something that might exist in another part of the world but doesn't exist in your particular country, that's something that you can still apply with that under.
Yeah. And if the question is whether you have to have a fully formed prototype and your project has to be in the startup phase and that you have funding and you have a team put together and things, no, we distinguish ideas and startups. So you can have a brand new idea and apply under the idea stage. You know, there are some requirements. It shouldn't just be something you thought of. There should be some thought and research that has gone into it at this point. You can apply in the idea stage, and if you are more developed and you have an actual team together, maybe you've even incorporated, you have funders, you have a prototype, then you just apply under the startup phase. So we're looking for both. The only limit on that is that the startup has to be 3 years or younger. So.
Okay, we're gonna have to answer these questions really quickly. Let's see. There's questions about clarification for executive summary. An idea is on paper. It's what you do is you submit it on the online application portal where you type in the executive summary for your idea or startup. If you have questions about that further and you need further clarifications, please send us an email and we can answer that questions. Let's see. What if I do not have a prototype and idea is on paper? That's fine. That's an idea stage. If you have if you don't have a prototype, but you have something in an idea or is more on paper, then you're probably in the idea stage. If selected as a finalist, can another team member join me at GES to support the team if they cover their flight? Unfortunately, we can't make any guarantees about this at this point in time. All we can say is that we can guarantee the flight for the finalist. Even if someone could potentially pay their own way and fly as another team member, we couldn't guarantee they would be able to get into the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. So that we just have to let we're at this point in time, we don't have answers for that. So I would say no for the time being, though, because in previous years that hasn't been possible. Search engine. I was wondering if we can make questions right now or wait. So the question, we're about to end the webinar right now. So if you have questions, it sounds like you have questions of whether you should wait. Go ahead and just email us at techeye@justnetwork.org and we can respond to any questions. Team we have done so far is prototype and demo. So again, as far as whether you're a startup or an idea stage, if you have a prototype and a team, you're probably in the startup range. And again, if you don't have a prototype, that's okay. You can still apply, and it's probably under the idea stage more. All right, I think we're going to have to end it there because it's beyond an hour and we need to get back to work. If you have any additional questions or any questions that weren't answered, please send us an email. We're happy to answer them. Again, this will be all posted on YouTube, and we'll get it up there on the justnetwork.org site. And we hope to see your application submitted before the deadline on the 22nd. So thank you and have a pleasant day.
Bye.